The garden was losing. Callan could see it every morning from the kitchen window. The crooked rows, the pale stems, the dirt gone to crust where it should have been dark and soft. He was a millwright by trade, good with timber and gears and the logic of moving water. He did not know gardens. He had never needed to, but Lena had asked him. In the last week, she was still strong enough to ask for things. Whether he would grow the flower garden she had always wanted behind the house. The patch of ground below the south window where the light came long in the afternoon. Larkspur and foxglove, she had said, and the small orange ones whose names she could never remember. She had drawn them in her little book with a stub of charcoal. He had said yes. He had meant it the way a man means every word he says to his daughter when she is sick and he is helpless. She had been gone 11 months. The garden was his one remaining promise, and the garden was losing. He had cleared the patch in early spring, turned the soil the way a neighbor told him, planted the seeds from the paper envelopes Lena had saved in her book. Something had come up, pale and spindly, and then something else had come up between the rows, thick, fast, and wrong, and now in the first week of summer the weeds were winning and the larkspur was a memory. He worked the rows every evening after the mill jobs dried up, pulling what he could identify as wrong, leaving what he hoped was right. He was wrong about it more often than not. The storm came on a Thursday, the kind that moves fast and hits without warning, turning the river valley white and loud. Callan was pulling the shutters when he saw her at the tree line. A large figure, green-skinned, sitting with her back to a birch and a canvas pack pulled over her head against the rain. She was not moving toward the house. She was simply enduring. He stood at the open door for a moment. The village 2 miles east would not welcome her at its inn. He had heard the way people spoke about the orc wanderers who moved through the valley in summer, and he had never much liked the sound of it. He did not think hard about what he did next. He called out over the rain that there was a dry corner in the house and soup on the fire if she wanted. And then he went inside and set a second bowl on the table and did not make it into anything more than that. She came in, ducking under the frame, and sat where he pointed. She was broad-shouldered and weathered, with thick braids pinned back and the look of someone who had been walking a long time. Her hands, he noticed, were stained faintly green at the knuckles, the way hands get when they spend their days in roots and leaves. She ate without saying much. He did not press her. The storm knocked at the windows and the fire did what fires do. When the rain broke, she thanked him in a voice that had some rust in it, as if she did not use it often, and went back out to her camp. He cleared the bowls and went to bed and thought nothing further about it. She was at the garden in the morning. He came around the corner of the house with his coffee and stopped. She was crouched at the near end of the patch, moving her hands through the soil with the slow attention of someone reading a page. She had pulled a small stack of weeds already and set them aside, and she was now looking at what remained with her head tilted, her lips pressed together in what was clearly an opinion. Colin watched her for a moment. Then he said that the garden was not what he had intended it to be. She said that she could see that. She said it without cruelty, the way a person states a simple fact. She turned a stem between her fingers and told him the larkspur was still alive. Under the third row, he had been weeding around it instead of through it. She said the foxglove was the right height for the season and would come in if it had room. She asked what the small orange ones were called. He went and got Lena's book. He brought it out without thinking about whether it was too private a thing to share, because she had asked the question plainly, and it deserved a plain answer. He opened it to the page where Lena had drawn the orange flowers and written the name underneath in her careful hand. Mora, she told him her name when he asked, looked at the drawing for a long moment without speaking. Then she said the word aloud, quietly, as if setting it down somewhere safe, and handed the book back. She came back the next morning, and the one after that. They did not discuss arrangements. She worked the garden in the early hours, and he worked beside her once he understood what she was doing, which took 2 days. She knew the soil the way he knew timber, by touch, by smell, by the small signs a person only learns through years of patient attention. She showed him how to read the color of the leaves, how to water at the root and not the stem, how to thin a row without grieving every seedling pulled. He was not quick to learn, but he was steady, and she seemed to find that acceptable. He learned across those mornings that she had been walking the valley for 2 years. She did not say much about what had preceded the walking, but he was familiar with the shape of that silence. He had worn it himself for 11 months. One morning, working side by side in the quiet before the heat came up, she said that she had lost her people to a sickness that moved fast, and that afterward, the place where she had lived no longer felt like a place a person could stay. He nodded. He understood that perfectly. He told her about the mill and about Lena's mother who had gone before Lena and about the promise. He did not dress it up. He said it the way it was. A man who had nothing left but one thing he meant to keep. She was quiet after that for a while. Then she said that the garden would come in. She said it with the certainty of someone who had made a study of what lives and what doesn't, and he believed her. The foxglove opened on a morning in late June, tall and spotted and exactly as Lena had drawn them. The larkspur followed 3 days later, blue-purple along the third row, like something out of an old painting. The orange flowers, whose name Mora now said easily, as if it had always been part of her vocabulary, came in along the border in a low bright band that caught the afternoon light the way Lena had always said they would. Callan stood at the edge of the patch and looked at it for a long time. He went inside and brought out the small flat stone he had carved the winter before, with Lena's name cut into it in the plain block letters a millwright makes well. He had not known where to put it until now. He set it at the near corner of the garden, where the light came first in the morning. Mora was tying back the foxglove when he did it. She watched without comment. Then she picked up the last seedling from the flat beside her, a small thing not yet flowering, that she had started from seed in a clay pot she carried in her pack, and planted it in the soil just beside the stone. She pressed the earth down firmly with both hands and sat back on her heels and looked at it. He asked what it was. She said it was something that came back every year without being asked. Something that remembered where it was planted and returned to it. She said her people had put them at the edges of gardens for that reason, a long time ago. He looked at the seedling for a moment. Then he looked at her. He said there was a room off the back of the house, a proper one with a window, that had been used for storage and ought to be used for something better. He said it plainly, without making it into more than an offer and less than he meant. She looked at the garden and at the stone and at the little seedling with its handful of leaves pressing up toward the afternoon sun. She said she would stay through the season and see how the garden did. He said that seemed right. They went in for supper as the light went long and gold across the valley floor, and the garden stood behind them in full color, keeping a promise that two people had made, one of them gone, and two of them just beginning to understand what it meant to stay.